Close your eyes and imagine a world where the only clock is the rising sun and the only road is a river of glass. You are standing on the edge of the Nile, 3,000 years before the modern world began its restless rush. Tonight, we are not merely observers looking back through a telescope of time. We are guests in a land that mastered the art of living in harmony with the eternal. If you have been carrying the weight of a long, loud day, let it sink now into the soft, cool silt of the riverbank. Feel the mud beneath your feet, damp and ancient, holding the memories of 1,000 generations. This is a place where every hour has a deliberate purpose, and every purpose leads back to the quiet sanctuary of the soul. Before the first light touches the tips of the pyramids, there is a secret rhythm to the Egyptian dawn that most history books forget to mention, a ritual of profound silence that prepared the heart for the day's labor. As the indigo sky begins to bleed into a pale, ghostly violet, the world around you is perfectly still. You might think that a civilization this grand, with its towering stone monuments and golden treasures, was built on noise and thunder. But its true foundation was actually laid in these moments of pre-dawn calm, in the rhythmic breathing of a valley that knew how to wait. In the next 2 hours, we will walk through the dust and the linen, tasting the honeyed bread and feeling the dry heat of the midday sun. Until the stars return to guide us back to sleep, we will discover why the simplest acts, the pouring of water from a clay jar, the grinding of grain on a stone, or the application of scented oils were considered sacred duties that kept the entire universe in balance. There is a specific heavy peace in knowing that your struggles and your joys were shared by someone standing in this exact spot 5 millennia ago. Looking at the same stars you see behind your eyelids now. The air is changing. It is losing the sharp chill of the desert night and taking on the soft, heavy scent of blooming papyrus and damp earth. This is the breath of the Nile, a life-giving force that has remained unchanged while empires crumbled into dust and kings were forgotten by the wind. You are safe here, protected by the same thick mud brick walls that shielded families from the heat for countless generations. As we prepare to witness the awakening of the valley, notice how your own breath begins to slow, naturally matching the steady, inevitable flow of the water moving toward the sea. The Egyptians believed that to speak the name of the past was to make it live again. Tonight, we breathe life into their world, not with the harsh light of a classroom, but with the soft glow of a hearth fire. We start with the very first glimmer of gold on the horizon, where the god of the sun is waiting to greet us with a warmth that feels like a heavy blanket. Listen to the water as it laps against the reeds. It carries the echoes of 1,000,000 mornings, each one a promise of renewal. The modern world is a vast, impossible distance away, its noise muffled by layers of sand and centuries of silence. Here, there are no deadlines to meet, no glowing screens to strain the eyes, and no heavy expectations to carry, only the cycle of the river and the path of the sun across the sky. We are about to step through the threshold of a commoner's home, feeling the transition from the vast open mystery of the sky to the intimate, cool shadows of a sanctuary built from the earth itself. The ceiling is low, the air is still, and the world outside is just beginning to stir. As the first ray of light finally breaks over the jagged eastern cliffs, the world is reborn, and we are there to see it begin. One quiet heartbeat at a time. Everything is exactly where it should be. The jars of water are cool to the touch, sweating slightly in the morning air. The linen garments are folded and crisp, smelling of sun and wind. The hearth is cold, but waiting for its first spark of life. This is the start of a journey that does not require movement, only presence. As we move deeper into the morning, notice how the details of this ancient life begin to feel more real than the room around you. The light is growing stronger now, turning the river into a ribbon of liquid amber, signaling that the time for dreaming is ending and the time for living has arrived. The horizon is no longer a dark line, but a glowing promise of gold. The transition is nearly complete. The desert is exhaling the last of its nighttime shadows, and the birds in the marshes are beginning to rustle their wings. There is a weightiness to this light, a golden density that seems to press down on the shoulders and the eyelids. grounding you in this ancient moment. You can almost hear the soft footsteps of the first servant waking, the gentle clink of a pottery lid, the distant lowing of a cow in the distance. These are the sounds of a world that is waking up without hurry. As the amber glow spreads across the valley, we leave the riverbank behind and move toward the warmth of the first domestic fires. The day is opening like a lotus flower, petal by petal, inviting us to see what lies within its heart. We move now from the river to the roof, from the water to the light. The shadows are retreating into the corners of the courtyard. And as the amber glow spreads across the valley, we leave the riverbank behind to witness the first stirring of life within the walls. The sky above the jagged eastern cliffs is a masterpiece of slow, deliberate transformation, a canvas that refuses to be rushed. It begins as a deep, velvet indigo, a heavy remnant of the night's mystery. But as you watch with heavy, relaxed eyes, the darkness begins to fray at the very edges of the world. A thin, almost invisible ribbon of pale amber appears soft, tentative, and shimmering like a secret whispered across the vast cooling sands of the Sahara. This light does not shout, it does not startle the world awake. Instead, it arrives with a gentle, persistent warmth that starts to dissolve the cool blue shadows of the Nile Valley, layer by painstaking layer. As the amber deepens into a rich liquid gold, the elegant silhouettes of the date palms emerge against the horizon, their feathered fronds perfectly still in the breathless, expectant air of the early morning. There is a profound sense of safety in this arrival, a celestial promise kept once again by the universe, signaling to every living thing that the world is ready to breathe, and that you too are allowed to begin again. As this creeping light touches the glass-like surface of the Nile, the river transforms from a dark mystery into a mirror of molten metal, reflecting the shifting glory of the heavens. Along the muddy, fertile banks, the sacred blue lotus flowers begin their own slow, mechanical ritual of awakening. They have spent the long night submerged, tucked away safely beneath the water's cool surface. But now, sensing the return of the heat, they rise through the depths. Their petals unfurl with a quiet, hypnotic precision, peeling back to reveal hearts of brilliant, sun-soaked yellow. The air begins to thicken with the scent of damp, rich earth and the subtle, intoxicatingly sweet perfume of these waking blooms. From the dense thickets of papyrus reeds, the distant haunting call of an ibis breaks the silence, a sharp, nay, rhythmic sound that echoes across the water like a temple bell. It is soon joined by the soft, steady splashing of a lone fisherman's oar, a sound so rhythmic and ancient that it feels like the heartbeat of the river itself. Everything in this vast landscape is awakening in a coordinated dance of life, moving with a grace that has absolutely no need for haste, no desire for speed. There is a deep spiritual reason why the ancient Egyptians watched this particular horizon with such reverent, wide-eyed awe. They did not see the sun as a distant scientific ball of burning gas. To them, it was the living god Ra, returning from his perilous nightly journey through the underworld to protect his people once more. To them, the very first ray of light that broke over the jagged cliffs and touched a person's resting face was not merely a change in atmospheric temperature. It was considered a literal kiss from the divine, a physical embrace from a father god who had conquered the darkness. This first embrace was believed to be a physical transfer of life force, a golden touch that wiped away the lingering shadows of bad dreams and purified the soul for the day's work. Imagine that heavy, golden warmth pressing against your own skin now, a comforting weight that tells every cell in your body that the darkness is over, and you are cherished. This light is a shield, a benediction, and a source of inexhaustible energy that has been recycled through the ages, warming the same earth for 5,000 years. Inside the quiet, thick-walled houses of the village, the transition from sleep to life is just as soft, just as deliberate. There are no sudden movements here, no jarring noises to startle the spirit. There is only the gradual brightening of the whitewashed mud walls as the sun climbs higher in the sky. You can hear the faint, dry rustle of a linen bedsheet being pushed aside, a sound as delicate as the turning of a page in a very old, very precious book. This linen is coarse against the skin, yet surprisingly soft from years of washing. Smelling faintly of the sun-bleached air and the dry herbal scent of hyssop used to keep the bedding fresh and pure. A person sits up slowly on their raised sleeping platform, their movements heavy and relaxed, still carrying the peaceful remnants of a long sleep. There is no urgency to leap into the tasks of the day. Instead, there is a moment of total stillness, a quiet breath taken in the half-light of the room, acknowledging the simple, profound gift of another morning in the valley. The house itself seems to exhale a long, cool breath as the mud bricks begin to release the last of the night's chill. The feet move toward the edge of the sleeping platform, hovering for a second in the still, dust-mote-filled air. When they finally make contact with the ground, there is a sudden, grounding sensation of cool, solid earth that travels instantly up through the spine. These floors are made of packed clay, mixed with straw and polished to a dull, comforting sheen over decades of constant walking. They feel as permanent and reliable as the limestone mountains that guard the valley. This is a home built to last forever, a sanctuary crafted from the very silt provided by the river, dried by the sun into a fortress of domestic peace. The coolness of the floor anchors the spirit, providing a steady, unshakable foundation for the hours of life to come. The shadows are retreating further into the corners, leaving the center of the room bathed in a soft, indirect glow that highlights the simple, uncluttered beauty of a life lived in balance. Outside, the world is growing louder, but the sounds are filtered through the density of the earth walls. They come to you as if from a great distance, the distant clinking of a pottery jar being filled at the well, the soft, melodic murmur of a neighbor's greeting in the street, the dry, rhythmic scrape of a broom on a courtyard floor. These are the textures of a morning that understands the sacred value of a slow start. The light is now a bold, confident yellow, pouring through the high, small window slits near the ceiling and creating long, dramatic shafts of light. Every object in the room, the simple wooden stool, the woven reed basket, the clay water jar takes on a sharp, clear outline, as if the sun is redefining the reality of the world one item at a time. You are standing at the very center of this unfolding clarity, feeling the immense strength of the walls around you and the steady, ancient pulse of the land outside. The heat of the day is still nothing more than a distant, pleasant promise, a gentle warmth that makes the skin feel supple and alive rather than burn. There is a deep, quiet satisfaction in this moment of preparation, a sense that everything in the universe is in its proper place, and that the balance of Ma'at, the cosmic order of truth and harmony, is being maintained by these simple, repetitive acts of being. As the household begins to stir more fully, the focus of the mind shifts away from the internal, fluid world of dreams and toward the external, vibrant world of ritual and service. The transition is entirely seamless, a natural progression from the stillness of the bed to the activity of the hearth. The light is no longer just a sign of time passing. It is a guide, a silent companion leading the way toward the first physical tasks of the day. As the amber glow deepens into a warm honey color and the air begins to circulate more freely through the corridors of the house, we prepare to move from the quiet solitude of the bedroom into the living heart of the morning routine. The first steps of the day have been taken, the divine kiss of awe has been received on the brow, and the foundation of the day is set as firmly as stone. The cool clay beneath your feet is a reminder of the earth's incredible endurance, and the light on the walls is a reminder of the sky's infinite generosity. We move forward now, leaving the sanctuary of the night behind. As the house opens its doors to the full, brilliant reality of the Egyptian morning, the shadows have retreated to the very edges of the courtyard, and the golden light now claims the entire floor, leading the way toward the jars of fresh water and the scent of the morning's first purification. Moving with the steady, unhurried pace of the river itself, we step out of the shadows of rest and into the clear, vibrant reality of the waking world, ready to touch the water and begin the walk through time. The cool clay beneath your feet serves as a final reminder of the earth's endurance, guiding your steps away from the sleeping platform and toward the heart of the home, where the stone walls stand ready to tell their stories. To truly understand the life of those who walk the banks of the Nile, one must first understand the sanctuary of their walls. Step inside now, leaving the growing brilliance of the courtyard behind, and feel the immediate heavy embrace of the mud brick. These walls are not like the thin, hollow structures of the modern world. They are thick, dense, and formidable, born from the very earth they stand upon. The Egyptians crafted these bricks from the rich, black silt of the river, mixed with straw and dried by the unforgiving sun, until they became as hard as stone. As you move deeper into the house, notice how the air itself begins to change. It becomes still, weighted with a natural earthen humidity that feels like a cooling cloth pressed gently against the skin. The thickness of these walls, often stretching 2 or 3 feet deep, creates a powerful thermal barrier, a silent, ancient guardian that holds the desert's scorching breath at bay. You are standing in a fortress of climate, a hidden space where the outside world's intensity is rendered powerless by the sheer, cooling mass of the mud and the clay. The texture of the interior is a profound study in functional serenity. The walls are not rough or raw. They have been coated in a fine layer of gypsum plaster and whitewashed to a brilliant chalky finish. In the dim, indirect light of the morning, these white surfaces act as soft reflectors, catching the stray beams of sun that filter through high, narrow vents and diffusing them into a gentle pearlescent glow that fills the room without heat. Run your hand along the surface in your mind. It feels slightly dusty, chalky, and surprisingly cool to the touch, like the skin of a deep cave hidden from the sun. This whiteness serves a dual purpose. It keeps the interior bright and welcoming without the need for large, heat-leaking windows, and it provides a clean, neutral backdrop for the colorful woven mats and painted wooden chests that furnish the space. The house does not just provide shelter. It provides a visual rest, a sanctuary where the eyes can recover from the blinding golden glare of the Sahara. As you linger in the main living area, you might notice a subtle, constant movement in the air, a phantom breeze that seems to defy the absolute stillness of the day. This is the result of a brilliant piece of ancient engineering known as the Malkaf, or the wind catcher. High above on the flat roof, the Egyptians constructed angled openings specifically oriented toward the north to catch the prevailing Mediterranean breezes that travel down the valley. These vents funnel the cooler, higher altitude air down into the very heart of the home, pushing the rising indoor heat out through smaller exhaust holes near the ceiling. It is a primitive but perfect form of natural air conditioning, a silent set of lungs for the house that ensures the private rooms remain a pocket of cool air even when the midday sun is at its most ferocious. This architectural foresight allowed the Egyptian family to retreat into a cocoon of comfort, a place where the harshness of the environment was replaced by a sophisticated engineered peace. You can almost feel that northern breeze now, a soft, invisible finger trailing across your brow, carrying the faint, salty scent of the sea from hundreds of miles away. The floor beneath you is equally intentional and grounding. It is made of the same packed clay as the walls, but it has been polished with oil and buffed until it shines like dark, still water. It is remarkably smooth, offering a tactile sensation of absolute stability and permanence. As the sun climbs higher outside, watch the shadows of the roof vents crawl with agonizing, beautiful slowness across this polished expanse. The shadows are long, sharp-edged and deep, moving in a rhythmic, predictable arc that marks the passage of the morning without the intrusive metallic ticking of a clock. The movement is so slow it is almost imperceptible, a visual lullaby that anchors you firmly to the present moment. There is a profound sense of safe here, a realization that as long as you are within these mud brick arms, the elements cannot reach you. The house is a living thing, breathing through its roof, shielding with its skin, and grounding you with its very bones. Everything within this space is designed to minimize friction and maximize rest. The low ceilings in the inner rooms create a sense of intimacy and security, while the lack of cluttered furniture allows the mind to expand and breathe. The heavy, earthen scent of the walls, a comforting mix of dried river grass, minerals, and a faint hint of wood smoke from the outdoor courtyard acts as a grounding aroma, pulling your consciousness deeper into the physical reality of the ancient home. Here, in the heart of the architecture of cool, your pulse naturally slows, your muscles loosen, and the frantic, buzzing energy of the outside world is forgotten. The house is a vessel, holding the life within it with a steady, unshakable hand, guarding the silence as if it were a precious treasure. You find yourself sitting on a low-woven stool, the fibers of the papyrus reeds dry and firm beneath you. From this vantage point, the house feels even more like a sanctuary. The light that does enter is deliberate, falling in long, golden shafts that illuminate the dancing dust motes, turning them into tiny, floating stars. There is no noise here that is not natural. The house absorbs sound just as it absorbs heat, muffling the world outside until it becomes a distant hum, a memory of activity that does not require your participation. You are tucked away, hidden in the shade of history, wrapped in a blanket of clay and silence. The light is shifting now, moving away from the sleeping quarters and toward the central basin of the home. The coolness of the clay floor remains, a constant companion, but there is a new readiness in the air. The sanctuary has provided its rest, and the body, now fully anchored and protected by the strength of the mud brick, feels the first gentle pull of the day's active rituals. The thick walls will continue to guard this coolness until the sun sets and the stars return. But for now, the transition begins from the stillness of the structure to the movement of the person. We move from the embrace of the walls toward the silver gleam of the water jars, as the body prepares for its first sacred act of the morning. The shadows have completed their slow, silent dance across the room, pointing the way toward the washing area. The air remains sweet and tempered, a testament to the Malkaf's silent, tireless work on the roof. Stepping softly on the polished clay, we leave the deep shadows of the corner behind, moving toward the sound of water trickling into a stone bowl. The architecture has done its job. It has kept us safe, and now it prepares to watch with silent dignity as the day truly begins. The home is the anchor, but the water is the life. With the solid protective weight of the home guarding your peace, the focus now turns from the outer shell of the house to the quiet purification of the self. As we approach the waiting water, the air in the washing alcove remains tempered and sheltered by the immense thickness of the mud bricks, but it carries a new, crisp energy that smells of morning freshness. Here, the transition from the heavy, lingering stillness of sleep to the pristine clarity of the waking world begins with the silver, rhythmic gleam of water. In the center of this small private sanctuary stands a series of large, porous clay jars, their surfaces cool to the touch and beaded with a fine, delicate mist of condensation. These vessels are masterfully designed by ancient hands. The clay breathes through its microscopic pores, allowing a tiny amount of moisture to evaporate, which in turn keeps the water inside significantly colder than the surrounding desert air. As you reach for a smaller, pouring vessel, notice the satisfying, grounding weight of the water. It is heavy, pure, and life-giving, hauled from the heart of the Nile before the sun could even warm the riverbanks. The sound of it sloshing against the clay is a low, hollow resonance, a primitive music that signals the start of the morning's first sacred duty of purification. As you pour the water slowly over your hands and forearms, the sensation is an immediate, sharp contrast to the lingering warmth of the linen bedsheets. It is a gentle waking of the nerves, a soft shock that pulls the consciousness fully into the present moment without jarring the spirit. To clean the body, the Egyptians did not use the harsh, lathery soaps of the modern era, which strip the skin of its natural essence. Instead, they turned to the profound purity of the earth itself. You take a small, measured amount of naturally occurring salt harvested from the crystalline lake beds of the Wadi Natron. It is a fine white powder, slightly gritty between the fingertips, smelling of sun-bleached stone. When mixed with a few drops of chilled water, it creates a mild, effervescent cleansing paste that feels alive against the skin. As you rub it slowly over your limbs, feel the mineral quality of the salt working deep into your pores. Natron does not just lift away the oils of the night. It acts as a natural disinfectant and a miraculous softener, leaving the skin feeling unnaturally smooth, taut, and strangely light, as if a layer of weariness has been physically peeled away. The scent is neutral, almost like the refreshing smell of rain hitting dry limestone. A clean, honest aroma that does not compete with the vibrant natural world waiting outside. You move the paste in circular motions, a repetitive and rhythmic act that turns hygiene into a form of moving meditation, anchoring your mind to the feeling of the minerals against your flesh. In this quiet, private moment of grooming, there is a specific ritual for the mouth that has remained virtually unchanged for 5 long millennia. A shared human routine that connects you to every generation that came before. You reach for a small, slender twig of licorice root, which has been soaking in a shallow stone bowl of water to soften its tough exterior. One end of the wood has been carefully hammered until the tough fibers have frayed into a stiff, yet flexible fibrous brush. This is the ancient toothbrush, the chew stick, as you use it to scrub your teeth. The natural juices of the root release a faint, sweet woodiness that freshens the breath far more effectively than any modern chemical. The rhythmic, repetitive motion of the brushing, the steady back and forth scrape of the fibers against the enamel, is a meditative act, a task that requires focus but zero stress. It is a reminder that even in an age of stone and bronze, the smallest details of personal care were executed with a precision that borders on the professional. The teeth are polished until they are smooth to the tongue. The gums are stimulated by the wood, and the mouth feels tingly, bright, and utterly renewed. The final rinsing follows a slow, deliberate, and voluminous deluge of that chilled clay jar water that washes away the salt, the grit, and the last remnants of nocturnal fatigue. You feel the water cascading down your shoulders, carrying the dissolved natron into the stone drainage basin with a rhythmic splashing sound. Every pore feels open and breathing. Every limb feels invigorated but deeply, profoundly calm. There's a sense of lightness now, as if the water has washed away not just the dust of the world, but the very weight of yesterday's worries. To dry the skin, you take a towel made of used recycled linen. This is not the thick loop terry cloth of today, but a flat weave fabric that has been softened by 100 washings in the river and 100 long afternoons drying in the intense Egyptian sun. The act of drying is not a hurried scrub. It is a slow, rhythmic patting, a conscious appreciation of the body. You feel the fabric drink the moisture from your skin, leaving behind a faint, pleasant coolness as the air hits the lingering dampness. The movement is steady and purposeful, arm by arm, chest and face, until the body is dry but still holding a hint of the water's vibrant life force. The alcove is quiet now, save for the occasional solitary drip of water hitting the stone basin below. This sound, a singular, rhythmic plink, serves as a natural metronome for your thoughts, slowing your heart rate to match the stillness of the room. You are now a clean vessel, purified by the earth's salts and the river's blood. The transition is physical, but it is also deeply psychological. You have shed the skin of the dreamer and donned the skin of the living. The body feels balanced, prepared, and receptive to the next layer of the morning's transformation. The mirrors of polished bronze, hanging on the mud-brick walls, catch the growing light from the courtyard, casting a warm, metallic glow over the scene. They reflect a version of yourself that is centered, serene, and entirely present in this ancient moment of grace. You stand for a moment in the total silence, feeling the soft air circulate around your clean skin. The weight of the day has not yet begun to press upon you. There is only the feeling of the smooth, cool floor, the smell of the damp clay, and the internal quiet that comes from a ritual performed with genuine care. The jars are settled back into their wooden stands, their essential work for the morning finished. The dampness on the stone floor will soon evaporate in the rising heat, leaving only the faint, clean, and holy scent of natron in the air as a memory of this purification. The physical cleansing is complete, but the ritual of preparation is only half done. The skin is now a blank canvas, smooth and receptive, waiting for the protection and the fragrance that will define your presence in the world outside these protective walls. We turn away from the water now, moving toward the small, ornate jars of carved alabaster that hold the concentrated essence of flowers, resins, and history itself. Each step across the floor is a quiet transition from the purity of water to the richness of oil. The water has cleared the path for the senses, leaving the skin cooled and ready to absorb the golden, aromatic essences that bridge the gap between the earthly body and the divine spirit. The heavy, aromatic air of the dressing area invites you to sit and linger, to let your weight settle into the woven stool as the morning light grows a fraction warmer and more golden. Beside a small, polished bronze mirror that reflects a soft, amber version of the world, sits a collection of ornate vessels, miniature masterpieces of carved alabaster, smooth hematite, and deep blue lapis lazuli. You reach for a solid stone jar, its lid fitting so perfectly that it creates a soft, pressurized suction, a quiet, rhythmic hiss of air as you lift it. Inside lies the raw material of ancient transformation, heavy chunks of deep green malachite and shimmering, crystalline black galena. These minerals are cold to the touch, dense with the immense weight of the deep earth from which they were mined in the rugged eastern desert. There is a profound, respectful silence in this preparation, a moment where the quiet vanity of the world meets the enduring chemistry of the gods. You place a single, vibrant fragment of the green stone onto a flat siltstone palette tool that has been worn smooth by years of daily use, its surface holding the faint, colorful ghosts of 1,000 previous mornings. The ritual continues with the rhythmic, hypnotic sound of grinding, a sound that seems to echo the very slow and inevitable turning of the earth. You take a small, rounded pebble of the pestle and begin to crush the mineral against the flat palette. Listen closely to the texture of the sound, a crisp, grainy crackle that gradually softens, second by second, into a silky, rhythmic shushing, as the stone breaks down into an impossibly fine, microscopic dust. This is the true meditative pulse of the ancients, a steady, circular motion that requires patience, a gentle hand, and a mind that is willing to let go of the passage of time. The green of the malachite is vibrant and deep, like the shimmering scales of a serpent or the lush, shadowed leaves of a papyrus thicket in the height of summer. Once the powder is as fine as smoke, you add a single, precious drop of clear, rendered animal fat or perhaps a touch of cold-pressed castor oil. The dry dust drinks the moisture instantly, transforming before your eyes into a thick, lustrous paste that catches the morning light with a metallic, crystalline sheen. As you prepare to apply this pigment to your skin, you realize that this act is far more than mere decoration or a fleeting desire for beauty. In the ancient mind, the eyes were the windows through which the soul interacted with the divine sun, and they required both adornment and fortification against the harshness of the world. You take a slender applicator made of polished bone, dipping it into the dark, heavy paste of the black galena known to us as coal. The true nature of this substance is a testament to the quiet ingenuity of the Egyptian people. It was not created simply for the sake of aesthetics. This lead-based liner acted as a powerful, ancient disinfectant. The subtle chemical properties of the galena helped to ward off the painful, stinging eye infections common in the marshy, humid Nile Valley, while the dark, heavy circles painted around the lid served a vital, functional purpose, absorbing the blinding, white-hot glare of the Sahara sun. Much like the black grease used by modern athletes today, it was a protective shield for the vision, a daily medicine for the flesh, and a silent prayer for divine protection, all contained within a single, steady stroke of black silk. The application itself is a study in delicate, steady-handed grace, a task that demands you to be entirely present in the moment. With the bronze mirror catching the golden morning light, You draw the bone applicator slowly along the rim of the eyelid. The paste is cool and slightly heavy, a soothing, grounded weight against the sensitive skin. There is absolutely no hurry here. You follow the natural, elegant curve of the eye, extending the line outward toward the temple in a graceful, tapering wing that seems to pull the spirit toward a state of absolute focus. This motion is repeated over and over until the eyes are framed in a deep, protective shadow that makes the whites of the eyes appear brilliant, clear, and strikingly alive. The scent of the fat and the minerals is earthy, clean, an honest, a grounded fragrance that connects your living body to the stone of the mountains and the ancient soil of the valley. You watch your own reflection in the bronze, seeing the transformation from a quiet, tired sleeper into a focused, protected participant in the cosmic order of the day. Now, you reach for the final touch, a small, translucent jar containing red ochre, ground into a powder as soft as a feather. This is the rouge for the lips and the high points of the cheeks. As you apply it, it leaves a flush of healthy, sun-kissed color that mimics the warmth of the rising sun hitting the limestone cliffs. The face is no longer just a face. It has become a mask of health, a symbol of high status, and a sign of spiritual readiness. The oils on your skin begin to warm with your natural body heat, releasing a faint, lingering aroma of frankincense and charred resins that had been infused into the base of the pigments. This scent acts as a private incense, a subtle moving cloud of fragrance that moves as you move, marking your territory in the morning air. The heavy grounding work of the minerals is done, leaving you feeling fortified, beautiful, and shielded from the intensity of the day that waits outside the protective mud brick walls. The stone jars are closed now, one by one, with a final satisfying click of stone against stone. The palette is wiped clean with a soft scrap of used linen, and the tools are returned to their velvet-lined wooden chest. The outward transformation is now absolute. Your skin is clean and supple, your eyes are shielded by the earth's minerals, and your spirit is scented with the ancient resins of the East. You stand up from the stool, feeling the newfound lightness of your limbs and the sharp, clear clarity of your vision. The house is still quiet, but the air is beginning to carry a new, tantalizing invitation that moves through the corridors. The physical body has been purified, the skin has been adorned. Now, the internal fire must be tended to. As you step away from the mirror, the morning light is hitting the courtyard at a much sharper angle, illuminating the dancing dust motes until they resemble the very minerals you just applied to your skin. The coolness of the mud brick remains a constant companion, but your body is beginning to crave the warmth and the nourishment of the hearth. The focus of your mind shifts from the silver reflection in the bronze to the reality of the stomach, as the first true hunger of the day begins to stir in the belly. The outward shell is ready for the world, fortified and painted. It is time to nourish the life that dwells within. You move through the house with a sense of purpose, the scent of your own oils following you like a shadow. Each step on the polished floor is a confirmation of your presence. The morning is no longer a concept. It is a physical reality that you are prepared to face. The transition from the vanity of the mirror to the necessity of the meal is a natural progression, a movement from the self to the family, from the spirit to the sustenance. You can hear the distant, rhythmic sound of a wooden paddle against a clay bowl, and the air is growing thick with the unmistakable, comforting smell of roasting grain. The journey of the morning continues, drawing you toward the center of the home, where the first fire of the day is waiting to offer its warmth. With the face now shielded by the eyes of the sun and the skin glowing with the scent of sacred resins, the morning's focus shifts from the outer transformation to the inner fire, as the aroma of baking emmer wheat calls from the heart of the home. As you move away from the cool, silent sanctuary of the dressing area, a new and deeply grounding sensation begins to pull at your senses. It is a warm, drifting aroma that meanders through the mud brick corridors like a gentle tide, a scent that is both primal and profoundly comforting to the human spirit. This is the smell of the morning hearth, the very first fire of the day being coaxed into life in the open-air courtyard at the center of the home. You can hear the faint, rhythmic snap and crackle of dried palm fronds and sycamore twigs as they succumb to the golden hunger of the flame, a small, controlled sun that flickers within the thick clay walls of the conical oven. The air here is thicker, carrying the dry, toasted notes of roasting grain and the subtle, blue sweetness of wood smoke. It is the smell of survival, of a 1,000-year tradition, and of the domestic peace that defines the start of every Egyptian day. You find yourself drawn toward the soft, dancing light of the courtyard, where the morning's most essential labor is already well underway in a dance of shadows and heat. In the far corner of the sun-drenched courtyard, a woman kneels with practiced ease before a heavy, saddle-shaped slab of dark granite to quern. The sound she makes is the true, ancient anthem of the Nile Valley, a steady, grinding crunch and a soft, rhythmic shush as she pushes a smaller, rounded stone back and forth across the surface with the full weight of her shoulders. Listen to the texture of that sound. It is a grainy, repetitive friction, the sound of ancient emmer wheat being shattered and reduced to a fine, golden meal. The rhythm is intensely hypnotic, a back-and-forth cadence that mirrors the rocking of a cradle or the slow, steady pulse of the river itself. Each stroke of the stone is a quiet prayer of effort, a transformation of the hard, stubborn seeds of the earth into the soft, life-giving dust of the kitchen. A fine, invisible cloud of flour dust hangs in the diagonal shafts of sunlight, dancing like tiny floating stars before settling onto her linen-wrapped arms, a white, ghostly powdering that speaks of a morning already half spent in quiet service to the household. The dough is mixed in a wide clay basin with water from the porous jars and a small portion of sourdough saved from the previous evening's bake, carrying the lineage of the family's meals across time. There is a soft, wet thud as the dough is kneaded on a heavy wooden board, a rhythmic pressing, stretching, and folding that develops the hidden strength of the grain. As the clay oven reaches its peak heat, glowing a dull red from within, the dough is shaped by hands that have performed this sacred task 10,000 times before. In this moment, a fascinating and beautiful detail of Egyptian life reveals itself, one that speaks to their deep love for artistic flair, even in the most mundane of daily tasks. While we might imagine ancient bread as a simple flat loaf, the Egyptians were the undisputed masters of the bakery. They had specific, cherished names and distinct recipes for over 40 shapes and varieties of bread. Some were simple, functional triangles or circles, but others were intricately molded by hand into the shapes of cows, gazelles, or even human figures for special family offerings. This wasn't just calories, it was an expression of identity, a way to turn a daily necessity into a small, edible piece of art that honored the unseen gods of the harvest. The loaves are placed with a quick, deft movement onto the hot, vertical clay walls of the oven, clinging to the surface until the intense heat sears the bottom into perfection. Within minutes, the courtyard is filled with the intoxicating heavy steam of rising bread, a moist fragrance that smells of fermented yeast, toasted crust, and a faint, lingering hint of wild desert honey. The steam rises in white, translucent plumes against the brilliant blue of the sky, carrying with it the promise of vital energy for the heavy work that lies ahead. As the bread is pulled from the heat using a wooden paddle, the crust is dark, golden brown, and speckled with tiny bits of husk, crackling softly and musically as it meets the slightly cooler air of the shade. It is a sound of completion, a tiny chorus of snaps that signals the raw elements of the earth have been successfully tamed and turned into sustenance. You can almost feel the warmth radiating from the woven basket, a gentle, pulsing heat that seems to settle in the very center of your chest, bringing with it a profound sense of abundance and quiet, domestic satisfaction. Beside the steaming bread, a small clay bowl of crisp green scallions and a jar of thick, cloudy beer are placed on a low, hand-woven mat. This is the breakfast of the pyramid builders and the high scribes alike, a humble meal that bridges the gap between all social classes. The beer is not a drink of celebration, but a liquid bread, a rich, unfiltered brew full of protein and B vitamins, thick enough to be a nourishing meal in its own right. There is a deep, quiet respect in the way the food is handled here. There is no frantic clatter of metallic cutlery, no rushed or anxious conversation about the day's looming worries. Instead, the family gathers in the long, cool shadow of the courtyard wall, sitting directly on the polished earth as the sun continues its slow, inevitable climb. The only sounds are the distant, melodic call of a marsh bird and the soft, deliberate tear of a crust being broken by a hand. The meal is consumed in a comfortable, shared silence that feels as thick as the mud brick walls. In the ancient world, to eat was to participate in a daily miracle, the consumption of sunlight, soil, and water, transformed through human toil into life. There is a meditative, trance-like quality to this quiet breakfast, a moment where the family anchors themselves in the simple presence of one another before the vast world calls them away to their respective duties. The flavors are simple, but incredibly intense. The sharp, watery bite of the fresh onion, the earthy sweetness of the emmer wheat, and the cool, malty thickness of the beer. It is a harmony of the land itself, a direct physical connection to the black soil of the Kemet. You feel the nourishment moving slowly through your body, a slow release of strength that settles the mind and readies the limbs for the heat of the day. Eventually, the last of the crumbs are swept away, and the heavy stone quern is wiped clean with a damp cloth, waiting in the shadows for the next cycle of the sun. The fire in the base of the oven begins to die down into a bed of glowing, ruby-red embers, its intense morning work finished for now. Your stomach is full, your spirit is calm, and the internal fire of your own energy is now burning steadily, perfectly matched by the growing golden heat of the world outside the sanctuary walls. The intimacy of the breakfast circle begins to dissolve naturally as the individual paths of the day appear in the mind. The home has provided everything it can: purification for the body, protection for the skin, and now, the essential fuel for the long journey ahead. As you stand up from the mat, feeling the renewed strength in your legs, the transition from the private domestic world to the public professional world begins to manifest. The morning is no longer a private ritual. It has become a vibrant, public reality. The scent of the toasted bread lingers in the fibers of your linen garment, a warm, fragrant memory that you will carry with you like a charm as you step across the threshold and out into the humming energy of the Nile Valley. The peace of the hearth stays with you, anchored in your chest, but the call of the great river and the shimmering fields is growing louder with every passing second, pulling you toward the collective labor of the kingdom. You are ready, with the body nourished by the bread of life and the mind anchored in the deep silence of the shared meal. The focus turns from the warmth of the private hearth to the vast, shimmering horizon of the river, where the pulse of the entire nation begins to beat in earnest. As you step across the threshold of your home, the intimate, clay-scented air of the interior is replaced by the vast open breath of the valley. The path beneath your feet is made of fine, sun-baked silt, crunching softly and rhythmically as you begin the slow walk toward the riverbank. This is the profound transition from the private to the eternal, moving from the small, warm circle of the hearth to the immense, pulsing artery of the entire nation. To the ancient Egyptians, this water was never just a geographic feature. It was the great green, the source of all life and the very silver blood of the gods flowing through the land. As you move closer, the horizon expands with an incredible sense of freedom, stretching out in a shimmering ribbon of sapphire, indigo, and molten silver that seems to vibrate gently under the climbing sun. The morning heat is still kind, a soft, encouraging weight on your shoulders that reminds you of your small but significant place within this grand, living landscape. The closer you get to the water's edge, the more the world begins to hum with a specific, hypnotic, watery music. There's the dry, rhythmic rattle of the wind moving through the towering, dense thickets of papyrus, reeds a sound like 1,000 secret whispers passing through ancient paper. These reeds, some standing twice as tall as a man, sway in perfect lazy synchronization, their feathered green tops nodding toward the current, as if in deep conversation with the river. Beneath this whisper, you hear the steady, deep, percussive splashing of heavy wooden oars as a cargo barge moves toward the center of the stream. The sound of the wood hitting the water is deep and resonant, followed by the delicate, crystalline trickle of droplets falling back into the river's embrace. It is a slow, methodical rhythm that dictates the pace of the entire country. There is absolutely no urgency here, no frantic rush. There is only the inevitable, powerful momentum of a river that has been flowing with dignity since the dawn of time. As you stand on the dusty bank, watching the various vessels navigate the shimmering expanse, a brilliant truth of Egyptian life reveals itself to your mind, a secret of nature that made this civilization the most connected and peaceful in the ancient world. The Nile was the only highway they ever truly needed because it functioned as a perfect, divine two-way conveyor belt. While the mighty deep current always pushed northward toward the Great Sea, the prevailing winds of the valley almost always blew steadily from the north toward the south. This meant that a simple sailor could merely raise a large square sail to be carried deep into the heart of the continent against the current. And then, when the journey was done, drop the mast to let the river's own natural strength carry them back home to the delta. This effortless, natural symmetry allowed the people to move immense stones, golden grain, and profound ideas across hundreds of miles with a grace that felt like constant divine cooperation. It is a revelation of perfect balance, a world where the elements themselves conspired to help humanity thrive in peace. The movement on the water begins to take on a deeply hypnotic quality as you linger for a moment in the long, cool shade of an ancient sycamore fig tree. You watch a single small reed boat a graceful curved vessel bound together with meticulous papyrus twine drift slowly out of sight toward a gentle bend in the river. It moves with an agonizing, beautiful slowness, a tiny speck of tan against the vast, shimmering blue, until it finally merges with the soft heat haze on the distant horizon. The sight is a visual lullaby, a silent reminder that everything in this world eventually flows exactly where it is meant to go. Your eyes may grow heavy and soft as you follow its path, your mind drifting along with the invisible current, shedding the very last remnants of any personal worry or modern noise. The river does not ask for your effort. It does not demand your strength. It only asks for your quiet presence. The banks of the Nile are alive with activity, yet even the most difficult labor here feels like a natural part of the seasonal order. You can see the white linen kilts of the ferrymen and the deep sun-darkened skin of the sailors, as they work in perfect harmony with the wind and the water. The sound of their distant voices, calling out to one another across the wide expanse, carries a melodic, almost carefree quality that blends seamlessly with the rustle of the reeds and the cry of the birds. This is the wide-angle view of existence, the sudden peaceful realization that you are one small, safe part of a massive, flowing system that is both incredibly ancient and perpetually ever-renewing. The river provides the scale of your life, and the sky provides the eternal light, creating a sense of expansiveness that makes the heart feel light and the spirit feel entirely free of its burdens. The cool, damp moisture of the riverbank begins to fade slightly as you turn your gaze away from the water and toward the vibrant, emerald green belt of the floodplains that stretch out behind you. The transition is seamless and natural, where the water's edge ends. The vibrant life of the soil begins. The damp, dark, fertile earth of the banks gives way to the golden, waving stalks of grain that are now drinking in the full, magnificent strength of the morning sun. The expansiveness of the river has opened your mind, clearing away the fog of sleep, and now the focus shifts back to the tangible, grounded reality of the earth's incredible bounty. You can feel the magnetic pull of the fields, the call of the coming harvest, and the rhythmic, steady energy of the men and women who tend to the sacred land. As you begin to step away from the whispering reeds, the rhythmic sound of the oars fades into a soft, distant hum, replaced gradually by the melodic song of the harvesters working in the distance. The path leads you away from the river's edge and into the very heart of the fields, where the air is dry, sweet, and heavy with the intoxicating scent of ripening wheat and sun-drenched straw. The river stays at your back, a constant, shimmering guardian of your journey as you move toward the golden, productive center of the Egyptian day. The water has given you its blessing of flow. Now the earth prepares to give you its blessing of stability. With the vast, flowing spirit of the Nile still echoing in your heart, the path leads you away from the water's edge and into the shimmering embrace of the golden fields, where the true, silent wealth of the pharaohs waits to be gathered under the sun. As you leave the rhythmic, sprawling energy of the riverbank behind, the sun-baked path leads you toward the tall, cool, and shadowed columns of the administrative hall known to the initiates as the House of Life. Here, the expansive, watery sounds of the Nile are replaced by a profound, scholarly stillness that feels as thick and protective as the stone walls themselves. Step across the threshold and feel the immediate, blissful drop in temperature. The massive limestone walls of this professional sanctuary act as a deep, natural reservoir for the morning's lingering cool air, holding it tightly against the coming noon. Inside, rows of scribes sit in a posture that has remained unchanged for 3,000 years, cross-legged on the polished, dust-free floor, backs straight and dignified, with the long, honey-colored rolls of papyrus draped gracefully across their knees. There is no frantic clatter of modern machinery here, no urgent shouting. There is only the low, collective hum of focused intellect and the steady, quiet breathing of men at peace with their task. This is the domain of absolute order, where the chaotic, moving flow of life is distilled into the quiet permanence of ink and stone. The atmosphere is defined by a very specific, dry fragrance that settles comfortably in the back of the throat, a nostalgic mix of aged papyrus, which smells like sun-dried summer grass, and the earthy, slightly metallic scent of the concentrated ink cakes. On each scribe's wooden palette, there are 2 circular depressions containing dried, hardened pigments, one deep black, made from the fine soot of temple lamps, and one vibrant red, derived from the natural ochre of the distant desert. To begin the long day's work, the scribe dips a slender, sharpened reed pen into a small clay pot of clear water and gently swirls it against the ink cake, a circular motion as rhythmic, predictable, and soothing as the grinding of grain we witnessed in the courtyard. Listen closely to the microscopic texture of the sound as the pen finally meets the page. A soft, delicate scratch-shush. Scratch-shush as the fibrous reed travels over the slightly uneven, organic surface of the papyrus. It is a tiny, repetitive percussion that anchors the mind to the present, a form of work meditation where every carefully placed stroke of a hieroglyph is an act of bringing the entire universe back into a state of perfect balance. As you watch the dark ink dry into a matte, permanent black against the pale fiber, a startling and enviable realization about the status of these men comes to light, a truth that explains why this quiet. Shaded life was the most coveted position in the entire kingdom. To be a scribe was to be part of the intellectual heart of Egypt, a position so vital to the functioning of the great state that they were granted extraordinary, lifelong privileges. A scribe's existence was considered so sacred and essential to the gods that they were entirely exempt from the heavy, crushing taxes that burdened the farmers, and they were never once called to perform the grueling, dangerous military service required of other men. In a world defined by heavy physical labor, the scribe's only heavy lifting was done with the weight of the mind and the precision of the reed. They were the keepers of the eternal law, the honest measurers of the golden grain, and the silent chroniclers of the great kings. This professional piece wasn't just a job or a career. It was a sanctuary of status, a life where the only calluses ever earned were the small, proud and honorable marks on the fingers where the reed pen rested for decades. The work proceeds through the morning with a methodical, unhurried grace that defies the very concept of a deadline. There is no ticking mechanical clock on the wall to create anxiety. There is only the slow, silent movement of a golden shadow across the white limestone floor to mark the inevitable progress of the sun. When a document is finally finished, perhaps a complex record of a local land dispute or a beautiful flowing hymn to the rising sun, the scribe performs the final, deeply satisfying ritual of organization. The long, flexible scroll is carefully rolled up, the dry fibers of the papyrus crackling softly and musically like a dying hearth fire. It is then placed inside a tall, cool clay jar, which is labeled with a small tag, and moved to a wooden shelf, where hundreds of other identical jars stand in silent, orderly ranks. This act of organization is a visual and tactile lullaby for the observer, the hollow sound of the scroll sliding into the smooth ceramic, the dull final thud of the lid being replaced, and the sight of the rows of uniform jars create a deep, subconscious sense of intellectual peace. Everything is in its proper place, every transaction is safely recorded, the world is stable, predictable, and safe because the scribes have made it so with their pens. The silence of the great hall is punctuated only by the occasional, soft murmur of a senior scribe giving a gentle instruction to a young apprentice. Their voice is low, resonant and calm, blending into the background like the distant hum of summer bees. You find yourself leaning back against a cool, sturdy pillar, your own breathing beginning to sync perfectly with the slow, deliberate pace of the scratching pens. This is a return to a different, more structured kind of safety. If the home was the safety of the physical body, this hall is the safety of the entire society. There is a profound comfort in knowing that even 5,000 years ago, humans sought to create systems of fairness, memory, and record, building a world where the quiet word was just as powerful as the heavy sword. The light in the hall remains soft, filtered, and indirect, protecting the precious, fragile scrolls from the bleaching, destructive power of the midday sun. Outside, however, the world is changing rapidly. Beyond the thick, protective limestone walls, the gentle golden morning has transformed into the demanding, white-hot intensity of the midday. You can feel the heat beginning to press against the exterior of the building, a vibrating, humming energy that signals the arrival of the sun at its absolute zenith. The scribes do not look up from their scrolls. They are cocooned in their sacred task, protected by their high status and their thick stone walls. But the rhythm of the valley is shifting from the quiet, intellectual world of the mind to the raw, golden power of the body's peak labor under the open sky. The transition is subtle, but inevitable, a movement from the shaded, inky world of the office to the brilliant, exposed world of the physical harvest. As the scribes continue their rhythmic, mesmerizing scratching, you begin to drift slowly toward the tall doorway. The contrast is sharp and beautiful. The interior behind you is a world of deep blue shadows and cool air, while the world waiting outside is now a blinding, magnificent, and energetic white. The methodical organization of the scrolls provides you with one final moment of safety before you step back into the heat. The scrolls will wait here in this hall for centuries, holding their silent secrets in the dark, while the living world outside continues to pulse with the vibrant, sweaty, and glorious reality of the midday harvest. You take one last, deep breath of the dry, inky, and ancient air before moving finally toward the light. Everything is balanced. The records are sealed. The mind is clear. As you step out, the shadow at your feet has vanished, swallowed by the vertical light of the high sun. With the scrolls neatly tucked into their clay sanctuaries, and the order of the kingdom secured in permanent ink, we step out from the cool, scholarly shadows of the hall, just as the sun reaches its blinding zenith, casting no shadows over the laborers in the golden fields. As you step out from the cool, scholarly shadows of the House of Life, the world suddenly opens up into a vast, shimmering sea of gold, amber, and emerald green. The path beneath your feet leads you directly into the deep heart of the Black Land, the Kemet, where the soil is so rich, so dark, and so impossibly fertile that it feels almost alive and breathing beneath your weight. Here, the ground is still pleasantly cool and slightly damp from the morning's careful irrigation, and as you walk, the fine, silty mud feels thick, smooth, and incredibly soothing as it presses between your toes. This is the foundation of the entire empire, the sacred earth that has been gifted by the Nile's generous retreat each year. A farmer stands nearby, knee-deep in this dark silt, his movements slow, heavy, and deliberate, perfectly synced with the ancient steady pulse of the land. There is a profound sense of gratitude in the air, a quiet understanding that the earth is providing exactly what is needed for life to flourish in abundance. The morning heat is growing, but here, among the waving, tall stalks of grain, it feels like a warm, protective blanket rather than a burden to the spirit. The atmosphere is defined by a singular hypnotic sound that echoes across the entire valley, a sonic anchor for the soul, the rhythmic, long drawn-out creak of the Shaduf. This is the ancient water lifter, a simple yet brilliant lever made of weathered wood and toughened skin, balanced with a heavy grounding counterweight of dried river mud. Listen closely to the texture of the sound, a slow, wooden groan as the bucket is lowered into the canal, followed by a soft, watery slap as it breaks the surface of the Nile's artery, and then the satisfying rhythmic creak as the weight pulls the heavy, life-giving water up into the narrow irrigation channel. It is a sound that has not changed in 5,000 years. A mechanical wooden lullaby that tells the eternal story of the desert being slowly turned into a lush garden. The water flows from the bucket in a clear, cool stream, gurgling softly as it meanders through the miniature canals, soaking into the thirsty black earth with a faint, appreciative hiss. Every single repetition of the Shaduf is a heartbeat, a steady and reliable pulse that ensures the survival of the village and the kingdom alike. As the sun climbs higher in the brilliant sky, the work in the fields takes on a collective, musical quality that transcends the physical effort. To pace their movements and keep their spirits light and focused, the harvesters sing a low, melodic song that seems to rise directly from the dark soil itself. It is a call and response chant, a rhythmic and ancient exchange of voices that coordinates the swing of their curved bronze sickles through the dry, brittle wheat. Listen to the steady swish crack of the blades, a crisp, percussive sound that matches the slow beat of the song with perfect precision. The workers move in a long, slow line, their bodies swaying in a trance-like harmony that makes the labor feel as natural and effortless as a dance. There is no shouting here, no modern urgency. There is only the steady, inevitable progress of the harvest. The song is a golden thread that binds them all together, a sonic anchor that keeps their minds calm and their hearts steady under the expanding light of the sky. The air is thick, sweet, and intoxicating with the scent of sun-drenched straw and the earthy, raw aroma of the disturbed, fertile soil. In this moment of overwhelming abundance, a fascinating and deeply logical secret of the Egyptian state reveals itself, a truth that shows how deeply they understood the silent mathematics of nature. Long before the very first seed was even planted in this field, the royal scribes and the administrators had already predicted the exact size and weight of this specific harvest. They did this by using the nilometer, a sacred graduated stone pillar that measured the precise height of the Nile's annual flood with scientific accuracy. If the rising water reached a certain holy mark, they knew exactly how much fertile silt would be deposited and exactly how much grain would eventually grow from the black mud. This wasn't just guesswork or hope. It was a sophisticated, ancient system of prophecy through measurement. It allowed the Pharaoh to know, months in advance, exactly how many millions of mouths could be fed and how much golden wealth would flow into the royal granaries. The harvest you see before you is the silent fulfillment of a mathematical promise, a predictable, seasonal miracle that ensures the order of the world remains entirely unshaken. The heat of the day is now reaching its magnificent peak, and a soft, shimmering haze begins to rise from the golden fields, like a veil of light. The horizon becomes fluid, moving and dreamlike, with the distant, feathery palm trees appearing to float on a lake of shimmering silver air. The vibrant colors of the world, the deep, velvety black of the soil, the brilliant emerald green of the stalks, and the blinding, radiant gold of the ripened grain begin to blur together into a single radiant tapestry of pure light. This heat haze acts as a profound visual lullaby, softening the sharp, harsh edges of reality and making the entire landscape feel like a vivid, comforting, and waking dream. Your eyes may grow heavy and soft as you watch the slow, rhythmic movements of the distant workers, their white linen kilts flashing like the silent wings of water birds against the golden backdrop. Everything in the valley is moving much slower now, the frantic energy of the early morning giving way to the heavy, still, and magnificent power of the midday sun. You find a perfect, secluded spot to sit beneath the sprawling, protective branches of an ancient sycamore tree at the very edge of the field. The shade here is deep, blue, and incredibly cool, a stark and welcome contrast to the white-hot light of the open sun just a few feet away. From this sanctuary, the rhythmic sound of the distant Shaduf becomes a soft, comforting murmur, and the song of the harvesters feels like a gentle vibration in the warm air. This is a return to the most grounded form of safety. You are physically connected to the very source of life, sheltered by the ancient trees, and nourished by the sight of the world's incredible bounty. There is a profound sense of peace in knowing that the cycle of the flood and the harvest is eternal and unchanging, a massive silent machine of nature that will continue to turn with dignity long after we have finished our journey. The weight of your body feels heavy, relaxed, and entirely supported against the sturdy, rough trunk of the tree, your breathing slowing down to match the languid, peaceful pace of the afternoon. The world is reaching a point of absolute, vibrating stasis. The birds in the marshes have fallen silent, seeking refuge in the deep, cool reeds, and the wind has died down to a mere invisible whisper. The sun has finally reached its absolute zenith, hanging directly overhead like a massive golden medallion, casting no shadows whatsoever on the dark, black earth below. It is the sacred moment where time itself seems to stop, where the past and the distant future dissolve into the singular, vibrating and warm heat of the present. The laborers begin to slow their pace to a crawl, their bronze sickles coming to a final rhythmic rest as they look with relief toward the deep shade of the trees. The great work of the morning is complete. The grain has been gathered, the water has been lifted, and the promise of the Nile has been kept once more. As the last, fading notes of the harvest song dissolve into the shimmering air, you close your eyes for a long moment, feeling the immense, golden peace of the ancient land settle over you like a heavy cloak. The world is at its highest point of energy, yet it has never felt more profoundly still. The transition from action to absolute rest is about to begin, as the entire Nile Valley prepares to hold its collective breath for the sacred, silent hour of noon. You are anchored, you are nourished, and you are protected by the very earth that sustains the gods. The silence of the fields is now total, a heavy, golden, and shimmering silence that vibrates with the immense power of the sun. The great work of the day is pausing, and your spirit is invited to do exactly the same. With the golden harvest gathered, and the body anchored in the heavy, warm peace of the black land, the world falls into a profound and absolute silence as the sun reaches its highest point, signaling the hour when all shadows vanish and the spirit finally finds its center in the still, glowing heart of the day. The world has finally reached its absolute, shimmering peak of golden light. Beyond the deep, protective blue shade of the ancient sycamore tree, the air itself seems to vibrate with a silent, intense energy that defies movement. This is the sacred hour that the ancients called the hour of the ghost, the mysterious moment of the absolute vertical sun. When the heat is so profound and so magnificent that every living thing in the Nile Valley must yield to its overwhelming power. In this singular moment, the boundary between the physical world and the eternal seems to thin, as the entire landscape is washed in a blinding, shadowless white brilliance. The frantic, busy energy of the early morning has dissolved entirely, replaced now by a heavy, beautiful, and pervasive stillness that settles over the valley like a warm velvet cloak. There is no movement in the thick papyrus reeds, no ripple on the glass-like surface of the Nile, and not even a faint breath of wind to stir the fine dust on the sun-baked path. The universe has come to a complete, shimmering standstill, inviting you to let go of the burdens of the day and sink into the profound, absolute safety of the silence. The marketplace, which only a short hour ago was a vibrant riot of color and the melodic, rhythmic bartering of many voices, is now a sanctuary of total quiet. The heavy wooden stalls are draped in long linen cloths to protect the precious goods from the light, and the merchants have long since retreated into the deepest, darkest, and coolest corners of their thick mud brick shops. Even the temple dogs, those restless golden guardians of the sacred precincts, have found their own peace, lying stretched out and limp in the long indigo shadows of the massive limestone pylons. Their breathing is slow, rhythmic, and shallow, their bodies feeling heavy and completely relaxed against the cool ancient stone. In this sacred hour, there is no ambition, no physical labor, and no sense of haste. The village has become a soft dreamscape, a place where the only reality is the rhythmic, pulsing warmth of the sun and the deep, restorative pull of the shade. You can feel this immense stillness entering your own limbs now. A slow-moving, pleasant weight that turns your muscles to lead and your wandering thoughts to soft, drifting clouds on a summer horizon. In this moment of total suspension, a beautiful and ancient truth of the kingdom reveals itself to your drifting mind, a secret of cosmic balance that governed even the highest and most divine power in the land. It was believed by the wise that to maintain the divine harmony, truth, and equilibrium of the entire universe, even the great Pharaoh himself was expected to retreat from his throne and nap during this peak hour of the high sun. In the heart of his golden palace, surrounded by the faint scent of cooling lotus water and blue incense, the king would close his eyes to allow the world to reset and breathe. If the divine ruler of the two lands could pause his heavy heart to maintain the balance of the stars, then you too are granted the absolute, sovereign permission to do exactly the same. This rest is not a luxury or a moment of weakness. It is a sacred duty, a necessary and beautiful surrender to the natural order of the world. The universe is being held in place by this collective stillness, and as you close your eyes now, you are contributing your own peace to the very harmony that keeps the stars in their eternal paths. The silence around you is now so deep and so pure that you can begin to hear the soft internal rhythm of your own being. Each breath you take is slow, long, and entirely effortless, drawing in the warm, sweet scent of the dry earth and the distant, fading ghost of the river's moisture. Your head feels remarkably heavy now, a pleasant and irresistible weight that seeks the steady support of the ancient tree trunk behind you or the soft linen of your resting place. The world beyond your closed eyelids is nothing but a soft, glowing red warmth, a gentle and constant reminder of the sun's protective paternal presence. Every single muscle in your face begins to soften and let go. Your jaw relaxes completely, your shoulders drop away from your ears, and your hands lie open, heavy, and still in your lap, like fallen leaves resting on the surface of a deep, dark pond. The boundary between your body and the cool shade begins to blur and dissolve, as if you are melting slowly into the very fabric of the ancient landscape itself. There is absolutely nothing left for you to do, and nowhere else you need to be. The golden grain is safe in the granaries. The precious scrolls are secure in their clay jars. The great river continues its eternal journey toward the sea without needing your guidance or your effort. You are simply a quiet witness to the stillness, a passenger in the warm, quiet heart of the day. The pauses between your drifting thoughts grow longer and wider, like the immense expanses of the silent desert sands. You are drifting now, floating on the heavy golden tide of the midday heat, moving further and further away from the bright shore of wakefulness. The silence is your guardian, and the heat is your heavy blanket. Everything is balanced. Everything is at rest. The Ma'at is perfect. And you are a vital, peaceful part of that perfection. You are sinking deeper into the soft, velvet dark, where the world is quiet and your spirit is finally, completely at home. As the high sun begins its almost imperceptible descent, the very first hint of a new shadow begins to stretch out from the base of the temple walls. It is a slow, cooling finger of deep blue that marks the eventual return of time, but for now, that time is still very far away. The world is beginning to prepare for its gentle, slow resumption, but there is no rush to meet it. The profound peace of the high noon lingers in your very bones, a reservoir of stillness that you will carry with you into the cooling afternoon. Your breathing remains deep, steady, and rhythmic, a silent anchor in the vast, shimmering sea of golden light. You are safe, you are held, you are at rest in the heart of the valley. The long indigo shadows begin to stretch across the sun-baked earth once more. And as the heavy, sacred stillness of noon slowly dissolves, the valley stirs with a new, gentle energy, calling the spirit back to the rhythmic, cooling dance of the afternoon. The long indigo shadows have begun their slow, elegant stretch across the pale limestone streets, signaling that the sacred heavy stillness of the noon has finally passed. As the intense, white heat of the ghost hour recedes into memory, the entire village breathes again, and the communal pulse quickens with a renewed, yet incredibly gentle energy. You find yourself walking slowly toward the open square near the towering temple gates, a place known to the locals as the Bazaar of Whispers. The air here is no longer heavy and stagnant. It has become a vibrant, swirling tapestry of cooling aromas that awaken the senses with a soft, pleasant curiosity. There is the sharp, exhilarating scent of freshly crushed cumin and coriander, the deep, resinous perfume of imported cedarwood brought from the distant north, and the sweet, lingering trail of sun-ripened dates. This is the social heart of the valley, where the deep silence of the midday is replaced by a melodic, rhythmic hum of human connection. It is a place of slow movement, of smiling eyes, and of the soft, comforting clatter of life, resuming its beautiful, predictable dance under the softening light of the afternoon. The marketplace is a profound study in tactile variety and visual rest. Under the protective shade of long, colorful linen awnings that flap very slowly in the returning breeze, merchants display their treasures on hand-woven mats of golden straw. You watch as a young woman, her skin glowing like polished amber in the honeyed afternoon light, approaches a potter's stall with a calm and steady grace. She carries a finely woven linen garment, the fabric as white and light as the summer clouds drifting over the great green. There is no frantic shouting here, no modern urgency. There is only the rhythmic, repetitive back and forth of a fair and honored exchange. She lays the linen down with a soft rustle, and the potter offers in return a large glazed jar of dark, nourishing beer and a small, heavy bag of sweet dried figs. They speak in low, musical tones, their voices rising and falling like the small, rhythmic waves of the river hitting the bank. You hear the deeply satisfying metallic clink of small copper weights being placed on a balanced scale, a sound that is crisp, clean, and grounding to the spirit. Every transaction here is a conversation, a momentary bridge built between two lives, reinforcing the invisible, sturdy threads that hold the entire community together in a state of enduring peace. As you observe the steady, graceful rhythm of these ancient exchanges, a fascinating and sophisticated secret of the Egyptian world reveals itself to your mind, a truth that challenges the very way we think about value and wealth. In this bustling, vibrant bazaar, there is not a single metal coin to be found, no jingling purses of silver or gold to create anxiety or greed. There was no such thing as money in the way we understand it today. Instead, the Egyptians utilized a brilliant shared mental price tag known as the deben. A deben was a standard weight of copper or silver, but it never actually changed hands as a physical currency. It existed only as a shared intellectual language, a beautiful and fair way to measure the value of a goat against a basket of grain, or a bronze mirror against a long roll of papyrus. The metallic clink you hear is not the sound of a payment being made, but the sound of measurement, a sacred ritual of fairness that ensured both parties felt the divine balance of the mat was being preserved. It was a system built entirely on mutual trust and the weight of one's personal word, a commerce of the spirit as much as the hand, ensuring that every neighbor remained a friend. The energy of the bazaar is not one of competition or stress, but of a shared, slow-moving narrative that connects the past to the present. You see neighbors leaning comfortably against the cool, thick mud brick walls, sharing the small, precious news of the day, the healthy birth of a new calf, the exceptional quality of the new river silt, or a wondrous story brought by a weathered sailor from the distant, rocky cataracts of the south. These whispers are the soft connective tissue of the entire nation, a gentle, pervasive murmur that feels like a warm, soothing breeze moving through the crowd. The pace of life here is entirely unhurried, as if everyone understands deep in their soul that there is plenty of time for every single story to be told and every greeting to be returned. You find yourself caught in this slow social current, your own curiosity piqued by the sight of a brilliant blue faience bead, or the cooling smell of fresh mint being bundled for the evening meal. The world feels remarkably small, safe, and deeply interconnected, a sanctuary where every face is familiar and every interaction is a small, quiet celebration of being alive together under the same vast golden sky. The late afternoon sun is now casting a warm, honeyed glow over the entire square, turning the white linen garments of the moving crowd into soft, glowing lanterns of light. The natural wind down of the marketplace begins as predictably as the rising of the Nile. The merchants begin to fold their straw mats with slow, rhythmic movements, the dry fibers rustling softly and musically like the reeds by the riverbank. The rhythmic clink of the copper weights grows less frequent, replaced now by the final satisfied murmurs of the day's last deals. There is a profound and heavy sense of safety in this communal closing, a feeling of collective accomplishment and stability. The village has traded its goods, shared its vital stories, and maintained its delicate balance for another day. You feel a deep social peace settling in your chest, a sense of belonging to a world that values the weight of a person's character and the warmth of their voice as much as the weight of their golden grain. As the bazaar begins to quiet and the shadows grow even longer, the focus of the village starts to shift once more, turning inward toward the private life of the home. The social energy of the square is drawing back, moving toward the individual gates and the familiar protective doorways of the houses. The curiosity of the marketplace has been fully satisfied, and in its place comes a gentle, nostalgic longing for the intimacy of the family hearth. You can see the faint smoke from the evening fires beginning to rise in thin, blue ribbons against the darkening amethyst of the eastern sky. The air is cooling rapidly now, the desert's breath returning to reclaim the heat of the day and bring the stillness of the evening. Your own heart turns instinctively back toward the home, toward the thick mud brick walls that are now releasing the deep coolness they stored so carefully during the heat of the noon. The journey through the public world is nearing its natural end. You take one last, lingering look at the emptying square, where a few final soft whispers still float on the cooling air, before turning your steps toward the familiar path that leads back to your own private sanctuary. The weight of the day's human connections feels light and pleasant, a collection of small, golden moments that have nourished the soul. The transition is beginning, moving from the many of the market to the few of the family, and finally, toward the one of the dreaming mind. The world is settling, the deals are done, and the path home is clear and welcoming in the fading light. As the vibrant whispers of the bazaar fade into the soft purple twilight of the valley, the heart turns instinctively back toward the cooling embrace of the home, where the first flickering lamps of the evening begin to signal the return to the deep, private silence of the night. As you leave the last, lingering whispers of the busy bazaar behind, the world undergoes a magnificent, slow-motion transformation of color, light, and energy. The vast, expansive sky above the eternal Nile is no longer a blinding, brilliant gold. It has deepened into the rich, dramatic, and comforting shade of a bruised plum, with long streaks of burnt orange and soft, dusty violet bleeding into the darkening horizon. The intense, vibrating heat that defined the afternoon has been completely and quietly reclaimed by the desert's cooling breath, leaving the evening air fresh, crisp, and incredibly soothing against your sun-warmed skin. You turn your steps toward the familiar, thick mud brick walls of your home, which are now performing their final and most vital miracle of the day, releasing the deep stored coolness of the early morning into the twilight air. This is the ultimate return to safety, the closing of the grand circle that began with the very first light of dawn. The path is quiet, the shadows of the palms are long and soft, and the entire valley seems to be exhaling a long collective sigh of relief as the day's heavy labor reaches its graceful and inevitable conclusion. Entering the house, you find the interior bathed in a soft, flickering, and deeply calming amber glow. The small, triangular oil lamps made of simple, unadorned clay have been lit in every corner, their tiny flames dancing gently in the subtle evening breeze that moves through the corridors. The scent of the home has changed again. The raw, energetic smell of flour and the intense heat of the midday oven have given way to the sweet, intoxicating, and slightly heavy aroma of burning castor oil mixed with a tiny, precious pinch of frankincense. You move toward the central stairs, feeling the smooth, cool, and grounding pack of the clay beneath your bare feet, and climb upward toward the flat rooftop, the traditional evening sanctuary of every Egyptian family. Here, high above the dusty streets and the cooling limestone, the air is moving in a gentle rhythmic flow, carrying the faint, salty scent of the river and the earthy, rich perfume of the drying fields. The family has already gathered on hand-woven mats of soft papyrus, their bodies completely relaxed, and their voices lowered to a comfortable, intimate murmur that feels like a warm and protective embrace. In the center of this domestic warmth, a heartwarming and profound secret of the ancient Egyptian soul reveals itself to you, a truth that shows how deeply this civilization valued the quiet bonds of love and companionship. While other ancient cultures often viewed animals merely as tools of labor or sources of food, the people of the Nile were the first in human history to treat their pets, the sleek, mysterious cats and the loyal, long-eared dogs, as true, beloved members of the family unit. As you find your place in the circle, a cat with fur as soft as the falling evening shadows brushes gently against your ankle. Its rhythmic purr, a low grounding vibration that anchors you firmly in the present moment. These animals were not just silent shadows in the house. They were given their own unique and cherished names, reflecting their individual spirits, such as the Sunseeker or the brave guardian of the gate. In this intimate family circle, the distinction between the human world and the natural world softens into a single, shared existence of mutual protection, quiet affection, and deep, unspoken trust. The presence of these small breathing companions adds a final, essential layer of safety to the home, a silent confirmation that you are exactly where you belong. The evening is marked by a slow, playful music that has no need for complex instruments. You hear the rhythmic, wooden clack-clack of the children playing a focused game of senet on a low, polished table. They move the small, carved wooden pieces across the 30 symbolic squares with a slow, thoughtful deliberation, their laughter soft, melodic, and entirely unhurried. This game is a study in balance and fate, a miniature and playful version of the long journey of the soul through the mysteries of life. The sound of the pieces hitting the wood is a percussive lullaby, a steady wooden beat that marks the transition from the active, calculating mind to the soft, resting mind. All around you, the gentle murmurs of the elders sharing timeless stories of their ancestors blend seamlessly with the distant, liquid calling of the night, herons rising from the river reeds. Everything is moving in a slow, closing loop, a repetitive and holy cycle of gathering and resting that has sustained the spirit of this valley for thousands of years. The day's events are now being slowly digested and transformed into the memories that will fuel the vivid dreams of the coming night. The darkness is now almost complete, a deep, protective, and velvety indigo that hides the sharp, demanding edges of the external world. The small oil lamps cast long, dancing shadows against the parapet walls, creating a private, secluded world that feels entirely separate from the vastness of the desert beyond. Your body feels heavy, warm, and profoundly content, the physical exhaustion of the day's-long journey being replaced by a glowing sense of belonging. You are not an isolated being. You are a vital, cherished thread in the living tapestry of this family, this village, and this eternal nation. The air on the rooftop is now perfectly cool, the kind of crisp cold that invites you to pull a thin, soft linen shawl closer to your shoulders, a tactile and comforting reminder of the physical protection your mud brick home provides. The stars are beginning to emerge one by one in the overhead vault, piercing the dark velvet of the sky with a brilliant, steady light that has guided sailors, farmers, and kings alike since the very first flood of the Nile. The conversation in the circle begins to fade and drift as the natural weight of sleep starts to pull at the eyelids of both the young and the old. This wind down is effortless and natural, a slow and graceful surrender to the rhythm of the celestial bodies above. The Senate board is eventually packed away with a final hollow thud of the wooden box, and the children lean their heavy heads against their parents' shoulders, their breathing becoming deep, steady, and audible in the quiet air. You find yourself staring up at the emerging constellations, feeling the immense, infinite scale of the universe and the small, perfect, and glowing warmth of your own personal heart. The world is coming to a point of absolute vibrating stillness once more, but this time it is not the vibrant, demanding stillness of the noon. It is the soft, welcoming, and maternal stillness of the night. You are anchored in the deep domestic peace of the house, a sanctuary of earth and love that the desert winds cannot touch. The final transition of the day is signaled by a new, delicate, and hauntingly beautiful sound rising from the darkened courtyard below. A single musician has begun to play a small, wooden harp, the strings releasing a series of low, liquid, and cascading notes that seem to float upward on the cooling night air. The music is slow, melodic, and entirely without words, a sonic bridge that leads the spirit away from the tangible reality of the day and toward the vast, uncharted mysteries of the dreaming world. As each individual note vibrates and dissolves into the purple sky, you feel your own consciousness beginning to drift and expand, moving toward the deep, restorative, and holy silence of the inner rooms. The day is finally done. The harvest is gathered and stored. The records are sealed in their jars. The family is safe and together. As the harp music grows softer and the stars grow even brighter in the darkness, you prepare to descend the stairs for the final time, leaving the open sky for the cool, heavy, and silent embrace of the linen dream. The world is at peace, the gods are watching, and you are ready to join the silence. The low, liquid notes of the harp rise like silver smoke toward the emerging stars. And as the last echoes of the family's whispers fade into the cool night air, the heart finally yields to the deep, velvet call of the dreaming world. As the very last flickers of the family's soft conversation die down into a warm, comfortable silence, the atmosphere of the house undergoes its final and most mystical shift of the entire evening. The darkness in the open courtyard is now absolute, a thick and protective velvet that seems to absorb all sound, except for one singular, deep, and vibrating resonance that begins to pulse from the shadows. From the cool, dark corners of the lower colonnade, there emerges the low, primal thrum of a bow harp, a sound so ancient, so grounded, and so profound that it feels as if the very earth itself is beginning to speak in a language of vibration. The first note is a heavy, resonant bass, a deep vibration that you feel moving through your chest more than you hear with your ears. It is the rhythmic sound of a taut, gut string being pulled and slowly released, creating a shimmering ripple in the cool night air that mirrors the slow, steady, and peaceful pulse of your own heart. This is the music of the knot, the sacred and invisible frequency that binds the physical world of the living to the unseen world of the eternal, calling your spirit to settle into a state of deep, melancholic, and absolute peace. In the dim, flickering amber light of a single remaining oil lamp, the quiet silhouette of a singer becomes visible, often a blind musician whose lack of sight in the physical world was believed by the ancients to grant him a profound, crystalline vision into the spiritual realm. He begins to chant in a low, resonant baritone, his voice moving through the room like a slow-flowing river of dark, warm honey by Timness. He does not sing of the frantic demands of the marketplace or the heavy noise of the day. Instead, he sings a traditional harper's song, a rhythmic meditation on the exquisite beauty of a life well lived and the inevitable, graceful passing of all things. The lyrics are simple, repetitive, and deeply soothing, celebrating the warmth of the sun on the skin, the taste of the morning bread, and the cool emerald shade of the sycamore tree. As the music swells and recedes like the tide, you feel a profound sense of safety and belonging, a quiet realization that your day, with all its small efforts and private moments, has been a vital part of a magnificent and eternal masterpiece. The singer's voice is a steady, sonic anchor, a guide that leads you gently through the corridors of your own memory, allowing you to bless the day that is now fading into the brilliant stars. As the melodic patterns of the harp weave through the cool, silent rooms of the house, a startling and beautiful secret of the Egyptian spirit reveals itself to your drifting mind, a truth that bridges the vast gap between the living and the eternal. The people of the Nile believed that of all the things created by human hands, music was the only force powerful enough to be heard clearly in both this world and the divine afterlife. They viewed the subtle vibration of the harp strings as a literal bridge, a shimmering silver thread that allowed the souls of the departed to linger near the warmth of the hearth, and the living to touch the hem of eternity. To listen to this music is to participate in a cosmic conversation that never truly ends. It is a soft reminder that your spirit is not confined to the physical weight of your body or the mud brick walls of this room. You are part of an eternal vibration that transcends the passage of time, a melody that continues its journey even when the singer finally falls silent. This understanding brings a deep, spiritual weightlessness to your limbs, a feeling that you are floating on a vast sea of ancient resonance, protected by the perfect harmony of the gods. The music begins to undergo a slow, deliberate wind down, as if the harp itself is growing weary of the day and seeking the silence. The intervals between the notes grow longer and wider, creating vast, silent spaces where only the soft, rhythmic sighing of the desert wind remains. Each pluck of the string is now significantly softer than the last, a delicate, crystalline sound that vibrates for a mere moment before dissolving entirely into the indigo dark of the courtyard. The singer's voice has dropped to a mere whisper, a rhythmic breath that is indistinguishable from the rustle of the linen hangings in the breeze. You find yourself waiting for each note with a sense of peaceful anticipation, your own breathing slowing down to match the dying embers of the melody. The world is becoming less solid and less tangible, as the acoustic imagery of the harp pulls your brain waves away from the sharp clarity of thought and toward the soft, blurred edges of a deep dream state. The room, the house, and the entire valley are all fading into a single, unified vibration of absolute peace. The final note of the harp is held for a long, shimmering, and breathtaking moment, a low, fading hum that seems to travel upward through the roof and into the vast, silent vault of the stars. When it finally vanishes, the silence that follows is not empty or cold. It is a full, sacred, and pregnant silence, charged with the energy of the music that came before it. The singer has vanished back into the deep shadows, and the single lamp flickers one last time before yielding its light to the dark. You are left in the absolute, cooling embrace of the night, your mind clear of all words, and your heart anchored in the spiritual depth of the valley. The music has performed its final task. It has untied the knots of the day's lingering worries and prepared the soul for its long journey into the great silence. Your body now feels like a hollow vessel, light and receptive, purged of all effort and ready for its final transformation. The heavy, protective walls of the mud brick home are no longer just a physical shelter. They have become a sacred cocoon for your spirit. The cooling air carries the faint scent of the night-blooming lotus from the river, a fragrance that signals the world of the living has officially closed its eyes. You are no longer a farmer, a scribe, or a traveler of the roads. You are a spark of light returning to the dark, a melody returning to the eternal silence. The transition is almost complete. The physical world is a distant and fading echo, and the door to the dreaming chambers is standing wide and welcoming. As the very last vibration of the harp settles into the marrow of your bones, you feel the irresistible pull of the inner sanctuary. The day has been honored, the spirit has been sung to, and the universe is in perfect balance. You are ready to let go of the shore. The final vibration of the bow harp dissolves into the infinite silence of the stars. And as the house breathes its last cool breath of the evening, the body yields to its final transformation, stepping across the threshold into the deep, silver river of sleep. The very last oil lamp in the far corner of the room flickers one final, graceful time, its tiny amber flame bowing deeply, as if in prayer before yielding completely to the silent silver command of the rising moonlight. The house is now entirely bathed in a cool, ethereal, and ghostly glow that pours through the high, narrow windows, casting long, peaceful, and unmoving shadows across the smooth, dark mud brick walls. This is the sacred moment of absolute total surrender, the final drift, where the tangible physical world begins to dissolve into the silver mist of the deep night. As you move toward your bed, the air in the room is perfectly still, carrying only the faint, clean, and ancient scent of the desert's cooling sand. You lie down upon the frame, and the very first sensation is the exquisite, cool, and shocking silkiness of the fresh linen sheets against your skin. The fabric, woven with such rhythmic care by human hands, now feels like the softest, most weightless caress of a summer cloud, wrapping slowly around your limbs and drawing the very last remnants of the day's heavy heat from your tired, resting muscles. As you settle your weight into the bed, begin to notice the distant feeling of your feet, those faithful, tireless travelers that have walked the silty banks of the Nile and the golden, sun-drenched fields all day long. Feel them now as they finally release their long hold on the earth, becoming light, cool, and completely motionless beneath the protective layer of linen. Let that profound feeling of release move upward, slowly and surely, through your ankles and into your heavy leaden calves, as if the dark, cool, and nourishing silt of the river is gently pressing against them, absorbing every lingering ounce of tension. Your knees, your thighs, and your hips now sink deeply and fully into the bed, supported entirely by the ancient strength of the home. There is absolutely no need to hold yourself up anymore. The great earth is holding you now. The rhythm of your breathing has become the only movement in the entire room, a slow, deep, and effortless tide that rises and falls like the breast of the great green river itself. Your head finds its final perfect resting place upon the traditional wooden headrest, a curved, elegant, and ancient support carved from smooth sycamore or the cold, dark weight of ebony. While it may seem firm to the waking mind, to your dreaming soul, this headrest is a sacred and necessary vessel. It supports the very base of your skull with a gentle precision, allowing the neck to remain long and the breath to flow into your lungs without any effort or obstruction. As your head rests here, a profound and mystical secret of the ancient night reveals itself to your fading consciousness, a truth that transforms the very nature of your rest. The ancients did not view sleep as a mere biological necessity or a lapse in time. They saw it as a temporary, holy death, a nightly journey where the soul, the ka, is finally liberated from the heavy physical cage of the body. In this state of grace, your ka is free to travel through the duat, the vast twilight realm of the gods, to gather ancient wisdom, to meet with the spirits of the ancestors, and to be profoundly recharged by the primordial, pulsing energies of the universe. To sleep is to travel among the brilliant stars, protected by the silver spells of the night and the eternal love of the great Mother Nut. The darkness of the room is no longer an empty or lonely void. It has become a warm, thick, and protective blanket that wraps tightly around your shoulders and your chest. Feel your arms lying perfectly still at your sides, your fingers curling softly and naturally like the pale petals of a closing lotus flower in the moonlight. Your shoulders melt deeper into the bed, and your jaw becomes loose, heavy, and silent, as if all the thousands of words you spoke today have finally turned into soft, white, and silent feathers. The silver moonlight on the floor is a silent guardian, a bridge of celestial light that connects your sleeping body to the eternal, unchanging cycle of the moon. You are moving much deeper now, leaving the familiar shore of the physical world far behind you. The sounds of the house, the cooling of the bricks, the soft rustle of the linen, the distant, lonely sigh of the desert wind all blend together into a single, distant hum that signals the total beautiful letting go of the self. You are no longer a name, a role, or a history of actions. You are a soul in graceful motion, drifting on the silver, silent river of the duat. The entire weight of your life has been set aside at the foot of the bed, waiting for a morning that is still a vast, shimmering eternity away. The darkness is kind. The darkness is safe. The darkness is the silent womb of the tomorrow as you step across the very final threshold of wakefulness. The last image in your mind is the steady, pulsing and ancient light of the stars above the valley, beckoning you to join them in their silent, eternal dance. You are falling now, slowly, gracefully, and endlessly into the deep, velvet embrace of the night. The world of men has vanished entirely, and only the eternal remains in the dark. Far below the silent limestone cliffs, the great Nile flows on, rhythmic, powerful, and utterly indifferent to the passage of human time, carrying the collective, shimmering dreams of millions within its dark, deep, and secret depths. The river does not hurry. It does not strive. It simply is, moving with a heavy power that has no beginning and no end. Above the silent valley, the sky has become a vast, indigo temple, dominated by the imperishable stars, those distant, brilliant, and steady lights that circle the North Pole and never, ever set. They are the silent watchers, the ancient eyes that have seen every single sunrise and every single sunset since the first mound of sacred earth rose from the primeval waters of the Nun. They watch over your sleeping form with a steady, unwavering, and paternal light, ensuring that the balance of the entire universe remains perfect, stable, and undisturbed. In this absolute, breathtaking tranquility, a final and lasting truth settles into your spirit like a slowly falling star. You are no longer a separate, lonely being struggling against the world. You have become a vital, breathing part of this magnificent rhythmic pulse. You are a soul resting in the warm, ancient, and golden cradle of history, connected by an invisible silver thread to the very first breath of the world. Your breath is the whisper of the wind in the reeds. Your heartbeat is the steady pulse of the river. Your dreams are the unwritten stories of the stars. There is no fear here, for there is no time. There is only the eternal now, a state of absolute and holy peace where the soul is washed clean by the silence of the ages. You are home. You are safe. You are eternal. The silence is now a living, breathing presence, a soft and heavy weight that anchors you forever to the heart of the earth. The air in the room is perfectly still, perfectly cool, and perfectly holy. The long journey of the day has reached its ultimate silent destination, the point where the self dissolves into the all. Rest now, tired traveler of the Nile. The river will continue its long, faithful journey for you. The stars will keep their brilliant watch for you. The gods will hold your resting heart in the hollow of their hands. There is nothing left but the silence and the stars. Rest now, the river will wake. You, when it is time, rest now. The silence is your song. The silence is your home.